When the chosen one, the hero destined for greatness, denies themselves the primal current of sexuality, something darker brews beneath the armor of discipline. The unconscious hungers and desire retreats into the shadows, mutating into shame, obsession, or numbness. Carl Jung warned that what we repress doesn't die. It becomes the shadow, stalking us in dreams, fantasies, and secret compulsions. This isn't just about abstinence. It's about the psychic war between repression and expression, between lust and transcendence. Semen retention may promise power, clarity, even divinity. But what happens to the man who clings to it without confronting his erotic shadow? Does he become liberated or haunted by a gnawing emptiness? Tonight, we explore the psychology of lust through Jung's lens, the anima, the archetype of erotic longing, and the hidden truth of sexual shame. When the chosen one refuses their own desire, they risk splitting their soul in two, the warrior in the light, and the lover trapped in the dark. When Carl Jung delved into the subject of sexuality, he did not perceive it solely as the act of intercourse or the allure of lust. To Jung, sexuality was a symbol, a living metaphor for the force that permeates all of existence. He referred to it as libidon, merely sexual energy, but the vital current of creation itself. It is the very essence that propels the artist's hand across the canvas, the poet's words onto the page, and the mystic's yearning toward the divine. Sexuality, therefore, transcended the realm of mere pleasure. It encompassed power and the profound energy that permeates the human soul. However, this presents a paradox. What transpires when this energy is suppressed? What becomes of desire when it is denied its outlet? Jung cautioned that repression does not extinguish libido. Rather, it distorts it. When we force sexuality into silence, it does not vanish. It descends into the unconscious, adopting darker and more destructive forms. This is the root of the shadow. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply that which we refuse to acknowledge. In no domain is the shadow more potent, more haunting, than in the realm of desire. An individual who represses their sexual longing often believes they are purifying themselves, disciplining themselves, elevating themselves beyond mere physicality. However, beneath the surface, the psyche undergoes a transformation. Their libido, denied expression, infiltrates dreams, intrusive fantasies, and compulsions that they cannot articulate. For Jung, this was not merely a theoretical concept. He extensively studied the dreams of patients and consistently identified symbols of erotic charged serpents. Rivers, fires, enigmatic women. These were not mere random images. They were the unconscious mind's attempt to bring repressed libido back into consciousness. What we fail to confront in waking life resurfaces in symbolic form, demanding recognition. This is where we encounter the chosen one, the archetype of the hero, the disciplined warrior, the spiritual ascetic who voluntarily denies themselves in pursuit of greatness. Society commends his restraint, his control, and his discipline. Nevertheless, Jung would pose the pertinent question: what is the price to pay? The psychological consequences of repressing the most potent energy of the psyche. Treating it as an adversary are profound and often lead to psychic fragmentation. Repressed libido does not vanish. It dissociates from consciousness and operates independently, operating in the shadows. This can manifest as obsession, addiction, or emotional numbness. In the pursuit of transcending humanity, the chosen one risks becoming less complete. Consider the young man who practices semen retention, believing that by withholding his seed, he is accumulating life force, preparing himself for battle with the world. While this may initially provide a sense of heightened clarity and energy, refusing to confront the shadow of one's desire and denying the underlying hunger can transform this discipline into arrogance, shame, or secret compulsions. Carl Jung elucidated the concept of energy denied as energy corrupted. The libido cannot tolerate repression. If not provided a conscious channel, it will manifest in forms far less noble, such as pornography addiction, dominating fantasies, or sudden rages. A pervasive sense of emptiness, as if life itself has lost its vibrancy. can also arise. The danger of reducing sexuality to a conflict between purity and sin is undeniable. To Jung, sexuality is not the enemy. It is the raw material of transformation. Denied, it becomes poison. Accepted, it becomes medicine. The chosen one must learn not to suppress, but to transmute, not to deny, but to integrate. A deeper truth lies in the fact that sexuality transcends physicality. It is deeply psychological. When a man desires, he is not merely drawn to physicality. He is also captivated by something archetypal and timeless. Jung identified the anima, the inner feminine aspect of the male psyche, as the carrier of erotic energy. When a man falls in love, experiences lust or fantasies, he often projects this anima outward, perceiving in the woman not only her physical form, but also the reflection of his own unconscious feminine. This is why desire can feel overwhelming. It is not merely a yearning for physical release. It is the soul's aspiration for wholeness. To deny sexuality, therefore, is not merely to deny the body, is to deny the psyche's deepest desire for integration. However, repression distorts this process. When the anima is denied, she does not vanish, she transforms into a phantom, a temptress, a source of obsession. The individual who represses their desire finds themselves tormented by fantasies they cannot control. Their anima becomes a siren's call in their unconscious, drawing them towards behaviors that conflict with their conscious values. Consequently, Jung's warning: repression is not virtue. Repression is shadow, and every shadow, unacknowledged, will eventually demand to be confronted. The chosen one who denies sex believes they are becoming holy. However, in reality, they risk becoming possessed, not by malevolent entities from outside, but by their own repressed nature within. Therefore, Jung challenges us to reinterpret sexuality, not as a peril to be overcome, not as a temptation to be avoided, but as a profound energy that must be integrated. For only through integration, only through the union of conscious discipline with unconscious desire, can individuation commence. The hero's task is not to slay desire. It is to confront it, to comprehend it, to withstand its intensity without succumbing to its flames. For the libido is both beast and angel, serpent and dove. To sever it is to sever life itself. To embrace it is to embark on the path that Jung instructs us. Sexuality is not an impediment to enlightenment. It is the very essence of transformation. Denied, it becomes the shadow that haunts us. Accepted, it becomes the power that propels us into the fullness of the self. Consequently, the chosen one who abstains from sexual activity must question, is he truly traversing the path of discipline? Or is he merely evading his own shadow? The human psyche is not a single, unified kingdom. It is a divided land. On one side, the conscious self, the mask we wear, the choices we claim, the ideals we profess. On the other side, hidden in darkness, lies the shadow, the rejected, the unwanted, the parts of ourselves we fear to admit. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is born of repression. Whatever traits, urges, or desires we cannot accept in ourselves are pushed down into the unconscious. But repression is not annihilation. It is exile. What we push away does not vanish. It waits. Sexual desire, more than almost anything, is forced into this exile. From childhood, we are told to cover, to hide, to be ashamed of our longings. Our earliest stirrings of curiosity, our private impulses, are met with silence, punishment, or ridicule. The lesson is clear. Desire is dangerous, and so we bury it. But the unconscious keeps score. The body remembers. The libido is not extinguished. It becomes, imagine a man who prides himself on purity. He disciplines himself, abstains, represses. By day, he seems strong, but by night, his dreams erupt with images of forbidden encounters. A faceless lover, a violent hunger, a scene of lust that both terrifies and excites him. These are not random fantasies. They are the voice of his shadow crying out for recognition. The more he represses, the louder that voice becomes. He may find himself obsessed with pornography, with secret fetishes, with compulsions that shame him. Or worse, he may grow numb, detached, unable to feel any intimacy at all. This is the paradox of repression. What we resist persists. What we bury buries us. Jungian shadow work is the process of confronting these exiled parts of the psyche, to look squarely at what we have denied, to admit, yes, I desire. Yes, I feel lust. Yes, I am human. Shadow work does not mean indulgence. It does not mean acting out every fantasy. It means acknowledgement. To name the shadow is to rob it of its power, to secretly control, for the unacknowledged shadow will always seek expression. If not through our conscious choices, then through our unconscious sabotage. Think of the priest who preaches chastity yet is consumed by scandal. The warrior who disciplines his body but cannot master his obsessions. The spiritual seeker who meditates for hours but is plagued by erotic dreams. In each case, the shadow demands to be seen. Sexual repression is particularly toxic because it strikes at the core of our vitality. Libido is the energy of life itself. To repress it is to repress our very aliveness. This is why repressed individuals often feel hollow, fatigued, or emotionally numb. Their life force is locked away in the dungeon of the shadow, rattling its chains. And yet there's another danger. When sexual repression festers, it can erupt not as numbness, but as distortion. Fantasies grow extreme. Desires become compulsive. The repressed man finds himself fascinated by the very things he most condemns. His conscious mind may reject lust, but his unconscious is captivated by it. This is why Jung warned that repression breeds hypocrisy. A man may wear the mask of purity while being enslaved by the desires he refuses to own. The shadow, unacknowledged, always leaks. But here's the hope. Shadow work transforms repression into integration. By bringing the hidden into the light, by naming and facing desire without shame, the shadow ceases to control us. The fantasies lose their compulsive grip. The numbness begins to thaw. The energy locked in repression is released, not as obsession, but as vitality. Jung believed that confronting the shadow is not optional. It is necessary for individuation, the process of becoming whole. To deny the shadow is to remain split, fractured, at war with oneself. To face it is to begin the journey, and so, the chosen one must ask, what lies in his shadow? What longings has he buried? What shame has he carried in silence? Until he faces these questions, his discipline may be nothing more than a mask. His strength may be built on fragile ground. For the shadow does not disappear when ignored. It grows. It waits. It whispers in dreams, in fantasies, in secret habits. It is the hidden companion of every man. And only when the chosen one turns inward, looks his shadow in the eye, and says, I see you, can he begin to claim the full strength of his soul. Carl Jung once said, every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. He had called this inner image the anima, the archetypal feminine lodged deep within the male psyche. She is not merely fantasy, nor is she reducible to flesh. The anima is the man's inner soul companion, the embodiment of his hidden sensitivity, his longing, his capacity for love and eros. When a man encounters a woman in the outer world, it is rarely just the woman herself he perceives. He sees her through the lens of his anima. He projects onto her his inner image of the feminine, his dreams, his longings, his unspoken fantasies. This is why desire can feel so overwhelming, so irrational, so all-consuming. It is not simply attraction to a body. It is an encounter with the deepest mirror of his unconscious. But what happens when the anima is repressed? What happens when a man refuses to acknowledge his own inner feminine, when he shames his longing, when he fears his desire? The anima does not vanish. She haunts. She seduces. She turns into a phantom that lives not in conscious intimacy, but in obsessive fantasy. The man becomes captivated by images of women, pornographic illusions, idealized goddesses, unreachable lovers. He no longer sees real women for who they are. He sees only the projection of his own anima, split off and disowned. This is the danger of repression. The chosen one, in his attempt to discipline himself, may deny the anima. He tells himself that his desire is a weakness, that longing must be cut away. Yet, the more he resists her, the more power she gains in the unconscious. She slips into his dreams, appears in visions, or floods his imagination with erotic intensity. What he represses during the day erupts with force at night, and so the anima, unacknowledged, can become tyrannical. She appears as the seductress, the temptress, the one who lures the man away from his path. But in truth, she is only carrying the energy he refuses to embrace. Jung insisted that the anima is not the enemy. She is the guide. In mythology, she appears as the muse, the goddess, the fairy, the soul companion who leads the hero into the depths of himself. If a man integrates his anima, if he learns to see his desire not as shame, but as an inner dialogue with his feminine soul, then his sexuality transforms. No longer does he project blindly onto women. No longer is he enslaved by lust or fantasy. Instead, he can love with authenticity. He can channel erotic energy into creativity, art, even spirituality. But integration is rare. For many men, the anima remains hidden in the unconscious, disguised in obsession or numbness. This is why so many men feel simultaneously drawn to women and resentful of them. They want her, but they also fear her. They long for connection, but they also degrade or idealize. This paradox arises because they are not relating to real women. They are relating to the anima. And when the anima is denied, she appears in distorted form, the unattainable goddess on a pedestal, or the debased object of lust. The man caught in this split can neither love nor desire fully. He is torn. He either worships women in fantasy or avoids them in shame. He has not yet realized that what he seeks in them is in fact a reflection of himself too. Work with the anima is to reclaim projection. To say what I see in her is also in me, the beauty, the vitality. The erotic power that I chase in women is a mirror of my own denied inner feminine. By integrating this truth, the man begins to free himself from obsession. He no longer seeks completion outside himself alone. He begins to dialogue with his soul, and yet here lies the danger for the chosen one who denies sex entirely. In his pursuit of purity, he may exile the anima completely. He may strip his psyche of its feminine counterpart, and without the anima, he becomes hard, brittle, detached. His discipline may look strong, but it is lifeless. His focus may seem sharp, but it is dry. He has amputated half his soul, Jung would say. Such a man is incomplete, for no man can individuate, no man can become whole without reconciling with his anima. 2. Repressor is to condemn himself to emptiness, to be haunted by fantasies he cannot control. To embrace her is to walk the path of integration, to find strength not in denial, but in union. Think of the anima not as temptation, but as initiation. She comes in dreams, in fantasies, in longings, not to corrupt, but to teach. She forces the man to confront his hunger, his vulnerability, his need for intimacy. She is the gatekeeper to his soul. The great danger, Jung warned, is to confuse the anima with real women. To project her blindly is to fall into obsession, to chase illusions, to never truly connect. But the greater danger still is to deny her completely, for then she rules from the shadows. Distorting every desire, the chosen one then faces a test. He must not banish the anima, nor worship her. He must meet her. He must acknowledge that his erotic desire is not merely physical, but archetypal, that every longing is a dialogue with the inner feminine. The soul's hunger for wholeness, for in the end, the anima is not simply about sex. She is about integration. She is the bridge between the conscious masculine and the unconscious depths. To deny her is to remain fractured. To embrace her is to step onto the path of individuation. And so, the dark truth is this: the man who goes without sex, who represses his desire, is not just denying the body, he is denying his anima. And until he faces her, until he welcomes her, He will forever remain haunted by the phantom of his own unclaimed soul in ancient traditions. Semen retention was seen as sacred. Taoist monks believed it preserved life force, transforming sexual energy into spiritual power. Yogis spoke of brahmacharya, celibacy, as a path to union with the divine. And today, in the age of digital overload, young men are drawn once again to the idea: retain your seed. You will gain strength, clarity, and mastery. There is truth here. Semen retention can indeed sharpen the mind, fuel ambition, ignite creativity. Libido is not just sexual drive. It is raw life energy. When it is not dissipated, it can surge upward into vision, discipline, and focus. For the chosen one, semen retention may feel like a rite of passage, test of endurance, a way to harness the primal fire and wield it like a blade. But Jung would warn, beware. For repression and transformation are not the same thing. Retention without integration is not mastery. The psychology of lust is not simple. To repress the urge does not dissolve it. To ignore desire does not sanctify it. Energy denied becomes energy distorted. A man who retains without confronting his erotic shadow may find his mind consumed by fantasies. He may dream vividly, obsess over women, or feel a constant background tension gnawing at him. Semen retention, in its shadow form, can become a mask, a way of pretending mastery while secretly being controlled by desire. Jung taught that repression pushes libido into the unconscious, where it seeks disguised expression. The man who denies his lust may outwardly appear disciplined, but inwardly he is haunted. His body may be still, but his psyche is boiling. Here we must distinguish between lust and libido. Lust is the raw hunger for release, the animal drive. Libido, for Jung, was broader. It is psychic energy itself, capable of expressing his sexuality, creativity, ambition, even spirituality. When semen retention works, it is because libido is consciously redirected into higher forms. When it fails, it is because libido is merely repressed, trapped, circling endlessly in fantasy. This is the razor's edge. Retention can elevate, but it can also imprison. The chosen one who retains without integration may experience erotic shame. He tells himself, I must not feel this. I must not want this. But shame does not dissolve desire. It fuses with it. Desire coated in shame becomes obsession. Fantasies grow darker, heavier, more compulsive. The man finds himself oscillating between pride in his retention and despair at his hidden cravings. This is the split Jung described: the conscious hero versus the unconscious shadow. The more rigid the conscious stance, the stronger the shadow becomes. The more the man insists on purity, the more his unconscious insists on transgression. And here lies the tragedy. Some men in their pursuit of semen retention end up not empowered but emotionally numb. Their energy is blocked, not transmuted. They lose their softness, their sensuality, their ability to feel intimacy. They become rigid, brittle, detached, as if the fire of desire, once caged, has extinguished their warmth. Jung would remind us, semen retention must never be about denial alone. It must be about transformation. The retained energy must be consciously worked with, channeled into art, creativity, discipline, and relationship. Otherwise, it stagnates, turning sour in the psyche. In Jungian terms, this is the difference between repression and sublimation. Repression drives libido into the unconscious, where it breeds shadow. Sublimation lifts libido into higher expression, where it fuels growth. The path is not to deny lust, but to recognize it as raw material, a fire to be given new form. Consider this: lust itself is not the enemy. Lust is the body's cry for connection, the soul's yearning for union. It is only when we shame it, fear it, repress it, that lust becomes dangerous. Lust distorted by repression becomes addiction, compulsion, obsession. But lust acknowledged, faced, and integrated becomes passion, vitality, creativity. This is why Jung placed such importance on the confrontation with desire. To walk the path of individuation, a man must descend into the depths of his lust, not to indulge blindly, but to understand, to integrate, to transform. Only then does semen retention serve its true purpose, not as a prison of repression, but as a furnace of the danger is always shadow possession. A man who represses lust may find it breaking through in sudden, uncontrollable bursts, binging, secrecy, compulsions that undo his discipline. He may swing between extremes, weeks of restraint, then nights of indulgence. Without integration, semen retention becomes a cycle of repression and relapse, purity and shame. But when a man embraces lust as part of himself, when he accepts that his erotic energy is not sin but life force, then retention transforms. The seed he holds is not a denial of life, but a reservoir of power. His shadow no longer sabotages him because he has met it, faced it, acknowledged it. The psychology of lust, then, is not about fighting the body. It is about listening to it. It is about recognizing that every longing points toward something deeper, intimacy, wholeness, the anima within. Retention without this awareness is repression. Retention with this awareness is liberation. And so the chosen one must decide, will his path of semen retention be one of shadow or of integration? Will he repress and deny until his desires twist against him, or will he face his lust and transform it into strength? The truth is simple, yet difficult. Semen retention is not the victory of denying sex. It is the discipline of transmuting desire. It is the alchemy of lust into creativity, passion, and spiritual depth. For Jung, the question was never whether desire should be silenced. The question was whether desire could be transformed. And only the man who dares to confront the fire of lust without fear can hope to hold it, not as shadow, but as light. When the chosen one denies sex, it may seem like strength. Semen, retention, discipline, asceticism, all promise clarity and control. But as Jung warned, repression does not destroy desire. It only drives it into the shadows. The unconscious never forgets. The libido, trapped, twists into fantasy, obsession, or numbness. The anima denied becomes a phantom haunting dreams, pulling the man into projections and illusions. What he buries does not die, it waits. This is the dark truth. Repression is not mastery. To repress lust is to fragment the soul. To integrate lust is to become whole. For Jung, sexuality is not the enemy, but the raw material of transformation. Shadow work means facing the shame, the fantasy, the hunger, not to indulge, not to destroy, but to understand. Semen retention without this confrontation becomes a prison. But with awareness, it can become alchemy. Lust transmuted into creativity, intimacy, and power. The true path of the chosen one is not denial. It is integration. He must face his shadow, embrace his anima, and walk with desire rather than against it. Only then does abstinence become strength. Only then does discipline become freedom. For the hero's task is not to kill the dragon of desire, but to tame it, to ride it, and to let its fire illuminate the way.